Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here this afternoon presenting my project, my Master of Divinity project on lies and deception in the Book of Revelation. I want to start off by saying in the Book of Revelation that the enemies of God are presented as deceivers. For example, Jezebel in chapter 2, also according to people like Richard Mounce, the sons of Balaam and the Nicolaitans, the dragon of chapter 12, the beast out of the earth of chapter 13, and also the great prostitute Babylon in chapter 17 and 18. All of these groups and these people are referred to as deceivers. And they deceive people into believing or considering that their convictions are wrong. The subjects of the deception, obviously in the book of Revelation, are the seven churches: Thyatira, Pergamum, Laodicea, Smyrna, Sardis, etc. So, for example, let's look at the beast out of the earth. The beast out of the earth attempts to deceive people into worshipping the beast out of the sea. And therefore, what the beast out of the earth attempts to deceive people into believing is that their convictions regarding the first commandment are wrong. That their convictions regarding the commandment to have no other gods before the God of Israel is wrong. That's what the beast out of the earth attempts to deceive them about. And so in these different groups and their efforts to deceive people, they employed lies. The lie employed depends upon the goal of the deception. So, for example, to return to the beast out of the beast out of the earth attempts to deceive people to worship the beast out of the sea. And therefore, he works great wonders and great signs, making fire come down from heaven and giving breath to an image, so that the earth and its inhabitants would think that the first beast is worthy to be marveled at. Therefore, you can see the relationship between the deception and the goal of the deception. The goal of the deception is that people might worship the first beast, and so the deception itself is designed so that people would think that the first beast is worthy to be worshipped. Now, if we look at the context of the book of Revelation, there are very few scholars nowadays who would deny or would argue that the background of the book of Revelation is the Roman imperial cult. Listen to the words of David Orne, a commentator on Revelation. In an article he wrote a few years ago, he said, "Imperial cults, that is, temples dedicated to promoting the worship of the emperor, were particularly popular in the Roman province of Asia," which, if you think about Revelation, Asia is where the book is written to. It's where the seven churches are. And there was a temple to Augusta and Roma dedicated there even in 29 BC. And so Rome was all about promoting itself by using propaganda. For example, listen to the words of Plutarch when he's writing about when the wars had finally ceased and the peace of Rome had finally fallen over the land. Plutarch says, "A number of people sailed from the mainland to Lesbos and to all the other parts of this land, wishing to announce the gospel." Hear the word? The gospel. That the war was over. The Greek word euangelion, which we see so often in the New Testament. That's what these people were sailing to announce. Josephus, he says, every city celebrated the gospel that the war was over and that the emperor had established peace, and they offered sacrifices on his behalf. The Priene calendar inscription, which was discovered in Asia Minor, it says, "It seemed good to the Greeks of Asia, in the opinion of the high priest Apollonius of Menophilus Azanitus, to say, since Providence, which has ordered all things and is deeply interested in our lives, has set in most perfect order by giving us Caesar, whom she filled with all virtue, that he might benefit all mankind, sent him as a saviour for us and for our descendants, that he might end the war and bring peace to all things. And since the birthday of the god Augustus," hear that, the god Augustus, "was the beginning of the gospel for the world that came through him." Do you hear the language it uses regarding Caesar? He's a god. He has brought the gospel. He has come as a saviour. He is filled with all virtue for all mankind. Thus, it seems to me that the beast out of the earth in chapter 13 is a veiled reference to the imperial cult, and that the beast out of the sea is a veiled reference to the emperor. If you think about it, the beast out of the earth's job is to convince people to worship the beast out of the sea. And that's the exact job of the imperial cult. The imperial cult's job is to convince people to worship the emperor. That's why the beast out of the sea says, "Who is like the first beast? And who is able to stand against him?" Those are the words that the imperial cult were using regarding the emperor. Who is like the emperor? Who can stand against him? And so in Revelation, if a person believes the lie of the second beast, if a person believes the lie of the imperial cult, if they marvel at the first beast, if they worship the emperor, John says that they've been deceived. They've been deceived. They've compromised their convictions regarding the first commandment. And the evidence that they have been deceived, the evidence of their deception, is that they're able to buy or sell things in the marketplace. If you look at Revelation 13:17. The evidence of their deception is that they are flourishing in the world. They're not being persecuted for refusing to worship the emperor. They're in the trade guilds, which were particularly prominent in Thyatira. Thus, their lifestyle testifies to whether or not they have been deceived. And if a person has been deceived, then they themselves also become deceivers. They become liars. For example, think about if a member of the Church of Laodicea compromises their convictions, worships the emperor, marvels at his glory, then what does that demonstrate to everybody else? It demonstrates to everybody else in the Church of Laodicea that that person thinks that the emperor is more worthy of worship than God. Their worshipping of the emperor, their compromise, declares to the people around them that the emperor is indeed glorious. And therefore they themselves, in worshipping the emperor, they themselves, in being deceived, become deceivers. They become liars. This is a situation facing the Jews of Philadelphia and Smyrna. If you look at Revelation 3 verse 9 and 2 verse 9, John says that they say they are Jews, but they are not, because they are liars. These are people who claim to be Jews, but their hearts, their lifestyles, demonstrate to everybody else around them that they are not. Indeed, not only are they not Jews, but they are a synagogue of Satan. Satan is elsewhere called the deceiver of the whole world. And that's what's happened to these Jews. They have been deceived by the dragon. They've compromised their convictions and they've become liars. And the penalty for such people is a primary place in the lake of fire. If you look at Revelation 21:8, this verse is actually the verse which kicked off my interest in this topic. Revelation 21:8, liars stand at the end of the list. What we have in Revelation 21:8 is a list of the people who have a part in the lake of fire and sulfur. John goes through them: the cowardly, the wicked, adulterers, murderers, fornicators, magicians, idolaters. He goes through the list of people who have a part in the lake of fire. And right at the end of it comes liars. It's interesting that he ends on that, particularly because it follows idolaters. You'd think idolaters would kind of cover John's bases. Who are the ones who are not? Who are the ones who are in the lake of fire? Those who worship idols. But for John, that's not enough. It's not just idolaters, liars as well. More than that, liars is the only item in the entire list which takes the article. It's the only item which has the word "the" in front of it. And more than that, it's the only item which has the pronominal adjective pas in Greek. And whenever pas is present, the article doesn't need to be, because the articular, the definite idea, is contained within the adjective. And so the fact that it comes at the end of the list after idolaters, the pronominal adjective is present, and the article is present, it's almost as though John is highlighting this word and then double underlining it. Liars have a place in the lake of fire. It's really interesting then, we've talked a lot about lies and deception. When you look at the word truth, throughout the entire book, John is never described as being true. Neither are the churches. Neither are the 144,000. Neither are the 24 elders. Neither are the angels. Nobody in the book of Revelation is ever described as true except God and the Lamb, and those who speak God's words and the words of the Lamb. John is not described as true. Instead, he is described as a witness. That is, he is an instrument of the truth. And he is an instrument of the truth in that he demonstrates with his life that God is the only one worthy of worship. In Revelation, witnesses stand in theological contrast to liars. Liars demonstrate with their lives that something other than God is also worthy of worship. But witnesses demonstrate with their lives that nothing except God is worthy of worship. That's why John bothers talking about Antipas in chapter 2, verse 13. Antipas is called a faithful witness. And that's because Antipas, by his life and through his death, demonstrate to the world that the emperor is not worthy to be marveled at. That only God is worthy to be marveled at. And that's the point of John's sanctified imagination, if I can use the term which David de Silva coined. John in the book of Revelation is unveiling things as they really are. He's using his imagination to show the seven churches the realities of life. The emperor is not someone who is glorious and is to be worshipped. The emperor is truly a beast out of the sea. The imperial cult is not to be trusted and to be consulted. Rather, the imperial cult is like a beast out of the earth. The goddess Roma is not a glorious and benevolent reigning priestess. Rather, she is a drunken, murderous prostitute. She is like Babylon in the Old Testament, who kills God's people. And this gets to the heart of what the book of Revelation is all about. The opening word of Revelation is in Greek, apokalypsis, which is the idea of an unveiling, almost like the lifting of a cover, so that you might see what is under the cover. And that's what Revelation is all about. It's about lifting the cover on the things in life. Things in this life often look so glorious, so attractive, but John lifts the cover. He unveils them. He reveals them for what they really are. And thus he calls the seven churches of Revelation to be witnesses and to not be liars. Thank you.